That morning had started with the same quiet rhythm I had grown used to over the years. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the warmth of fresh coffee filling the kitchen, and the gentle sunlight slowly creeping across the counter like a familiar companion easing into the day. And I truly believed it would be just another ordinary morning until the unexpected knock at the door shifted something in the air, making even the stillness hesitate. When I opened it and saw Daniel, my neighbor's son, standing there with an expression that didn't belong on someone so young. Shoulders tight and eyes carrying a heaviness that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from thoughts that had been sitting inside him far too long. I knew instinctively that he hadn't come for anything simple, and without thinking, I stepped aside and let him into the house I had watched him run past as a boy with scraped knees and carefree laughter, now replaced by a quiet tension that made him look older in a way time alone couldn't explain. He hesitated before stepping inside, as though unsure he was allowed to bring whatever weight he carried into my calm little living room. But once he sat down with the cup of coffee I placed in front of him, holding it with both hands like it was something solid to anchor himself to, a silence settled between us that wasn't uncomfortable but expectant, the kind that forms right before someone gathers the courage to speak their truth. When he finally whispered that he didn't know who else to talk to and hoped he wasn't bothering me, something inside me softened with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. And as I leaned a little closer to show him that he had all the time he needed, he took a slow breath, the faint tremble in his fingers revealing how long he had been carrying his worries alone. And when the words began to come out, unsure but honest, they weren't dramatic confessions, but the deeply human fears of someone trying to grow up without losing himself, someone torn between expectations, uncertainty, and the quiet fear of disappointing the people he cared about. As he spoke, memories of my own younger years rose like dust floating in sunlight. Reminders that even age doesn't erase the moments when life feels heavier than your own hands can hold. And when he paused and looked up at me as if afraid he had said too much, I met his gaze with a gentleness that told him he hadn't, watching the tension in his shoulders ease for the first time since he walked through the door. The sunlight in the room shifted softly, warming the quiet space between us as he admitted he had told his parents because he didn't want to add to their worries. And I understood more deeply than he knew, because there were ages in my life where I too had swallowed my confusion rather than burden someone else, and when I told him that confusion wasn't failure but growth, often painful, often messy, he looked around my living room with a softness in his eyes, as though the calmness there was slowly unclenching something inside him. Then he asked if he could tell me something else, tapping lightly on the mug while gathering the courage to dive deeper. And when he confessed that he hadn't felt like he belonged anywhere lately, not with friends, not at work, not even with himself, and that he came here because he needed someone who truly listened. The word listened cracked just slightly in his voice, and I felt something wordless stir inside me. A quiet instinct to offer comfort not through solutions, but through presence. The kind that doesn't push, judge, or hurry someone through their own emotions. I told him he wasn't alone, that he wasn't difficult to understand, and that sometimes all a person needs is a quiet room and someone willing to hold space for the truth they've been afraid to say out loud, and the long exhale he released after hearing that made the entire room feel warmer, as though the light itself had settled around us in a gentler way as the morning deepened. He admitted he chose to come here because I had always spoken to him without judgment, even when he was younger, and when he asked whether I had ever felt things slipping out of my hands. At his age, I answered honestly, sharing just enough of my past for him to understand he wasn't alone in his confusion. And the way he listened, steady, sincere, fully present, minded me that connection doesn't depend on age, but on understanding. The hours slipped by, the sunlight stretching across the floor as Daniel slowly reclaimed some part of himself he had been losing. And when he finally rose to leave, he looked lighter, steadier, more grounded. Turning back at the doorway with a small smile that held gratitude free from any expectation, as he said he might stop by again, if that was okay, and I told him my door was always open, and when he walked down the path, his steps no longer weighed down by unspoken thoughts. I felt a quiet warmth settle in my chest, realizing that what began as an unexpected knock had become something meaningful. A reminder of how deeply a simple conversation can change the shape of a morning, and how people, without planning it, can walk away feeling a little more whole than before.